Here we go. It is the Holy Grail BCJ podcast brought to you by BearcatJournal.com. I'm Chad Brendel. He's Dave Simone. And it is the post Cotton Bowl edition, the end of the 2021 season edition of the podcast. Welcome to everybody joining us. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm
good. I forgot to tell you guys, and I can't really say it on air, so I'll tell you after the show. We got a new sponsorship coming here soon that I'm excited about, outside of just the Holy Grail. Yeah, it'd be a quickie, but you know which one it is, I think. So I'm excited for that coming up here in the very near future. I think it is a sponsorship that is going to make the fan base very excited. Would you agree?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. We talked about this.
Well, I'm sure I forgot it. I have a lot going on.
We'll talk about it more after the show. The people will find out soon enough.
I will remember as soon as you say it, but right now I'm drawing a blank.
I guess it's time to talk about the Cotton Bowl. We talked about it quite a bit on the BBP, but always good to get an extra set of eyes and ears and their observations and opinions from the journey down to Dallas that put an end to the 2021 season, a season that started with a loss on New Year's Day to Georgia, who are now playing for a national championship. It ended on New Year's Eve with a loss to Alabama, who's now playing Georgia for a national championship. And in between, 13-0, American Athletic Conference champions, and the best season in Cincinnati football history. Let's put a bow on it, and then going forward after tonight, it'll be time to start looking ahead. There's a little bit we can talk about looking ahead with the addition of Ivan Pace and some coaching stuff, news, happening over the past couple days, but. Let's get to the Cotton Bowl, Dave. How was your trip outside of the drive home?
Oh, it was good. We had an enjoyable time. AT&T Stadium is quite a sight. Quite. Still, just like it's still very funny to me that. The ongoing joke of it's in the Walmart parking lot is very, very true.
There is a Walmart right there.
Yes. And then I as we were going in, I was laughing at like the very like mediocre at best apartment complexes that were right next door too. That I was like, I can't believe Jerry hasn't just bought up all that to build cowboy things that people will pay money for.
Right
across the street from the stadium. But it was cool, except for the game and the drive home. So, glad we got to experience it, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Yeah, I mean that's the frustrating part was just seeing a team that didn't play their best. And obviously, you have to attribute a good deal of that to Alabama. But the reality is that was not, the best version of the Cincinnati Bearcats that we have seen this season. And that's what kind of makes it, I don't want to say irritating, but makes it at least a little bit annoying.
That's my probably like overriding thought is that they needed to play great to have a chance to win, and they didn't come close to playing great in any phase other than special teams.
Special teams and pass defense. No, they're not.
Yeah, but I mean, you're just frustrated that, you didn't, even with what Alabama can and did do, we could obviously tell that they did not play well. And that's the frustrating part when you get into a situation like that. But at the same time, we as a program, we as a fan base, we want to play the best possible teams, measure ourselves against them, and it exposes your weaknesses. I mean, you're playing the program of the decade. Counting, last decade or whatever, since the playoff, 2014, 2013, whatever it is. Like they're the team.
The gold standard.
You want to see how you measure up. And sometimes that can be, a stark reminder of where you really are, but you can't improve and you can't know exactly what you need to work on without having those opportunities. I mean, you can play in all the AAC championships and all the Peach Bowls and Fiesta Bowls or New Year's Six games you want. It's not the same. And, I just hope that, there's a lot of good that can come from that.
Well, I think that's like the one thing that that we've learned, right, is they've been able to take those things and apply them going forward, right? Like they get, they get stomped by UCF and then they figure out a way to beat UCF 3 times in a row. And they got that game in his first year where Navy ran for just under 1,000 yards. And then, up until this year, Navy had really struggled against Cincinnati's defense, which even this year, I didn't think their offense was all that great, but they were able to hang around enough. And then, the AAC championship, they get over that hump after losing to Memphis, and then they win it 2 years in a row. And it's something we've learned from this program that under Luke, they have continued to, when they've hit speed bumps, figure out a way going forward to overcome those speed bumps. So you have to be, at least intrigued by the fact that now that they've gotten to the mountaintop, they're not going to slide completely off and never be heard from again.
Well, I mean, you hope you hope that's the case. There's no guarantees, but yeah, it's what it's what we talked about in the preview. It's what I felt. I mean, I'm not going to say it played out exactly how I thought. UC had opportunities. They just didn't capitalize. It wasn't Alabama by no means played a perfect game.
Alabama played a game that allowed UC to have a chance.
Yeah. And they also I feel like when they get into these situations, they also do just what they need to do to win.
Yeah.
So,
except they usually blow everybody out anyway.
Well, yeah, because they're that good. They can kind of just do whatever they want. But there's just, there's a lot of different places we can go. I just think that, when you don't execute. I mean, to me, that's the bottom line is.
Yeah, for sure.
You're at a talent disadvantage from the jump. I mean, we can talk about UC's increased talent, and it has increased considerably. And a lot of guys are going to get drafted. But just I'll just use Brian Robinson for an example. Brian Robinson is arguably the worst running back that Nick Saban's had since he's been there. And he still ran for 1,400 yards this year and ran for almost 200 yards in the bowl game. So it's when you're comparing those things to previous Alabama teams, the down Alabama team is still loaded with guys that are going to be drafted and guys that have high level athletic ability, and then they've been in a program that has practically an unlimited budget, and they've been playing in these, like, I think I saw a stat the other day that I don't know the timeline. I don't know if it was the playoff era of the last 10 years, what it was. But Alabama's averaging 12.5 wins a season.
Yeah.
Over that timeline, whatever it was. And you're only guaranteed 12 games a year. So they're averaging more wins than games, that you're guaranteed. So it's just a different beast. And I think everybody saw that, and a lot of good can come from that. But they are, that's the thing too, is this is not a P5 G5 thing anymore.
No.
This is an elite, everybody else.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 programs that are elite. Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia.
Because for any of the we knew this was going to happen. This is why you can't put the G5 team in there.
Watch Michigan, Georgia.
Well, if Oklahoma State had been in that game, would it have looked any different?
No.
If Notre Dame had been in that game, would it have looked any different?
Probably would have been more lopsided.
Baylor?
No.
Ohio State?
No.
No. It's not a G5 thing. It's a Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. We'll see about Clemson. They're just way fucking further ahead of everybody else. That's everybody else. Their own conference, other Power 5 conferences. Like the Pac-12 hasn't won a bowl game since 2019.
Right.
Like it's like a non-existent sport out there right now. This isn't like a, UC didn't belong. UC belonged just as much as any of these other teams that have gone in there, played Alabama, and realized it's a different ball game playing them.
They're almost playing a different sport. Like they're playing.
I don't think it's almost
on some level between the NFL and college football.
They are playing a different sport. I mean, you're recruiting your quarterback from Mater Dei in California is going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Right. This
does not happen. Tight end from Napa, California is going to Georgia. Like these teams are literally just going, all right, you're the best tight end. We'll take you. Doesn't matter where you're from. We know that USC and Oregon and they don't matter anymore. Okay, you're the best quarterback. We'll pluck you. You're the best wide receiver. Couldn't get on, was in a log jam at Ohio State. Okay, we'll take you. I mean, next year, Alabama is adding one of the best running backs in the country from Georgia Tech and one of the best defensive backs in the country from LSU. Like, they're playing the portal game now, too. So it's like good luck. They were already getting all the best high school kids. Now they're going to get all the best transfers.
Right. That part's frustrating.
So it's just, but you want to be there. You want that opportunity. You want to see how you measure up. You want to see, I know the coaches don't say it in the moment, but you want to see where you're exposed, where your weaknesses are, where we can get better. Like, how many games this year or in the past couple of years does UC play that they go back and they watch the film and they go, our guy didn't do this right. If it was a better player, it would have been a different outcome on the play.
Yep.
So you want that. You need that to get better. Nobody gets better just beating the crap out of inferior teams.
To this right here, are you tracking what's going on with this?
The Lance Stevenson return game?
Yeah.
No, not a clue.
He's back in Indy. Pacers signed him to a 10-day, right?
I mean, I've seen that on the Twitter.
Yeah. He's got 20 points in the first quarter coming off the bench.
Has he made every shot? He's
pretty much. He's air guitaring. He's hitting
I'm
threes.
sure he's just strumming like a madman.
Lance is back, baby.
Just strumming like a madman.
Yeah, I mean, all but 3 of the playoff games have been blowouts. All but 3 of the semifinal games have been blowouts.
And, I mean, there's been 23 playoff games. 5 teams have won 22 of them.
Yeah.
So,
just add Cincinnati to the list.
Getting there is fine, but like there's a whole nother level you've got to get to. And honestly, like people might not want to hear it. Like it might not be attainable.
There you go. 9 for 11 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3, 22 points. Start of the second quarter. Get him born ready.
It's wild.
He's so good he's so fun. He's just a goofball. I guess if if there's one thing you come away disappointed, it's that they didn't get a touchdown because they had multiple opportunities and they couldn't cash in. It was, the chances were there and nobody made a play. Dez didn't make a play. Pierce didn't make a play. Trey Tucker didn't make a play. Just so many, this close that they don't recover the fumble. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum. They don't recover the muffed punt. They don't do anything with the Brian Cook pick. Like at some point, if you're going to beat Alabama, you got to do something. You're not beating them 6-3 unless you're LSU in 2014 or 15 or whatever that was. Like you gotta be like. I know people are probably sick of me making this comparison, but look at what the Bengals Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. They'd won 8 in a row. And for the Bengals to beat them, Jamar Chase had, the best day in franchise history for a wide receiver. One of the best days in NFL history for a wide receiver. That's how you beat greatness. And Cincinnati just didn't do it offensively.
No, I mean, of course, the heavy talking point was, game plan, play calling. But at the same time,
that stuff doesn't matter if you don't make.
It doesn't matter. Like you could have the best play called, but if your offensive line can't protect, it doesn't matter. If your receivers drop passes, it doesn't matter. If your quarterback is your best player and has been your best player, doesn't play a very good game, you can draw up the best damn plays you want. Doesn't matter.
Right.
You get into this situation, you are the Final Four. You are the top of the line, the cream of the crop. You're not going to win games not playing good. Like you're not going to out-scheme somebody and out-trick them in the national semifinals.
Right.
You have to make plays. Do I have some things that I didn't love. I don't even know what it was, but I didn't love the offensive game plan. But whatever the game plan was, the execution was poor. So it's hard to criticize the game plan too much when what we saw, they couldn't, execute that even to a decent level.
Right. And Tony, it's all in the trenches, which is absolutely right.
Oh, I've got a big stat for Tony on that one.
If it's what we've talked about many, many times. If you're going to play with Bama, if you're going to why was, especially for that first half last year of the Georgia game, why was it a game? Because Cincinnati held their own in the trenches. And then what did you see when James Hudson went out in the second half? Georgia's defensive line dominated. Like, if you don't have corresponding NFL talent to those teams across, and Cincinnati has an NFL talent on their defensive line. Myjai Sanders was a menace the entire game.
Right. like every one of Alabama's defensive linemen, whenever they go out to the NFL draft, will get drafted.
Yeah.
Here's
probably
one.
all of their offensive linemen as well.
Eventually. Oh, yeah. Here's this one for you. So this season, we'll start last year, 2020. Okay. UC gave up 11 sacks in 9 games. Mm-hmm. They gave up 8 sacks against Georgia. Mm-hmm. This year, they gave up 20 sacks in 13 games and 6 sacks against Alabama. So 14 sacks out of, what is that, 20? 39. So basically 50% of their sacks in the last 2 years. 40% were given up against the 2 best teams they played.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it right there.
And Alabama ran for 300
Well, but I
yards.
mean, like, just talking about offense right now.
Yeah, but I mean, on both sides, the line of scrimmage.
Sure.
Is where that game was won. Bama dominated both sides.
And and that's like, it's what we talked about in the preview. And I said some things on Twitter and got a lot of pushback on it because I wasn't just totally ripping the shit out of the offense. It wasn't that I was like forgiving the offense. My whole point was Alabama is not a running team. They were 80th in the country in yards per carry. And they were 113th in the country in tackles for loss allowed. They were not a good running team. If you were going to let them run, like we talked about, nothing else mattered. You could talk about offense. You could talk about play calling. You could talk about execution. If you were going to let them get 6 yards a carry, they were going to do that all night long and just be like, you can't stop it. We'll throw when we have to.
They still threw 30 times.
28. It's still the lowest output of any game this year.
It's their lowest passing total.
17 was the lowest completions. 28 was the lowest attempts, and the whatever the yards were was the lowest yards of any game this year for them. Well, that's the problem.
They were under 200 yards passing.
Yeah, it was like 180 something. Like 181. But that's the problem is they were 5 for 13 on third down. But I think 4 of those were on third and long when they completed passes.
Third and long was brutal.
And then one of the third downs they didn't get, they converted their 1-for-1 on fourth down. So, like, on the times that you did do well against the run, you gave up 3rd and 16 over the middle to Jameson Williams. You gave up 3rd and 10. You gave up 3rd and 11. So, like, if you're going to let a poor running team run the ball, then, like, what else is there?
Right.
You know, I thought 2 things that jumped out at me from and you know, we get flooded. Go 4 down linemen. It's not about how many guys are on the line, it's about a numbers game. How many guys are in a position to make a play within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage? And if you're only going to have 5 or 6 guys in there, the way they were playing they played a tight end a lot. You know, when you don't have John Mechie, you're not going to sit out there in the same type of wide open offense that you did in the other games. And their adjustment to that was more tight end, run it. And we did a really poor job tackling. And I thought on run plays, our edges did a poor job of containing the edge. There were a lot of plays where they would try to kind of run it up the middle / between the tackle, and then Brian Robinson would bounce it outside and have a lot of room over there. But the main issue run defense-wise was the tackling. I mean,
tackling was terrible.
3 and 4 yard runs turned into 7 and 8 yard runs. Well, there's nothing you can do when it's 2nd and 2. I mean,
yeah, and I thought, like if you go back to like some of the games where they had problems with stopping the run, you would see guys getting 5-6 yards before they were contacted. Like I thought UC did a pretty good job getting a hit on Robinson early in the run. They just didn't. They just bounced right off of him more often than not.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were getting totally just destroyed at the point of attack, and there were these like 6 feet wide holes that he's just running through and nobody's there to touch him. Like, no, those happened a couple times. I mean, but no, it was poor tackling. It was poor angles. It was poor reads. Just from a run standpoint, just, it was about as bad as they've been. It just, honestly reminded you of the Tulsa game. And,
well, I'm right, though. That's what Bama did.
The tone was set on the first drive. Like, I was surprised they threw it.
That was just to get into the end zone.
What's that?
That was just to get into the end zone.
But I figured they would just run it until they got in.
Yeah, they could have.
I mean, you run the ball, 9 straight times, and then 10th play you throw, and then on the one throw, we had I don't know what the hell was going on there. Arquan Bush is on the sideline. We got several linebackers in trying to cover a slot receiver. The guy's wide open and just walks into the end zone. But, I mean, the defense held up from getting, like, totally blown out, but they kind of just did what they wanted to do and needed to do to win the game. Like, the defense at no point made Alabama adjust from their initial game plan.
Yeah.
They made it hard for them. I mean, there were several drives they went 3 and out, several drives they punted, but like, it was not like UC did something and Alabama said, "Whoa, we were not ready for this. We need to change this, or we need to go to this formation to combat that." I mean, they literally just lined up and ran the ball and threw the ball when they needed to.
Do you think there was a tell on Dez throwing short right, or?
I don't know if there was a tell. I think that on early downs, they played cover 2, and they basically just said, "We don't think you can move the ball on us on a sustained 8, 10, 12 play drive, what have you. We feel like our defensive line is good enough to slow your run down, and we just don't want to give him a chance to get going. And so on early downs, we're not going to like fake rush, but we're going to
stay home, stay in our lane.
Basically stay home because we have Will Anderson, and the other 3 guys can kind of stay home, and we'll let him go at it. And because if we rush upfield too much and Ritter escapes and gets going, then that could be a problem. We're going to contain him on early downs, and then in true passing downs, we're going to go get him."
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, maybe there was. I have not rewatched the game and will not rewatch the game, but, you would think maybe just because of the number of balls that got batted down, but I just, like, on those plays, I just remembered, like, the way they were batted down, it wasn't like guys were rushing in his face. Like, they were stationary.
Yeah.
So
they were waiting.
To me, it came off as, well, we're just going to watch him. And we know that with Will Anderson and our other matchups, it's not like he's going to have all day to sit back there if we don't, if everybody doesn't rush. He's still going to not have a ton of time. So let's just make sure he doesn't escape and start accumulating a bunch of running yards and stuff like that. That's what I thought.
Only reason here's one of the main reasons, as I've looked back on this the past couple of days. Here's why I think that you might be right, and also that I might be a little bit right. On first and second down, they typically had Will Anderson on the left tackle.
Yeah.
But when they really needed to go after Dez, like on passing downs.
Well, yeah, like the 2 sacks at the end of the first half.
He was on the right tackle.
Yeah.
And Dylan O'Quinn just had no answer for him.
No, but I mean, that's not
a referendum on Dylan O'Quinn.
No.
Will Anderson's the best player in college football.
But it also goes to like what we talked about last week, is how were they going to scheme against him.
I mean, I thought they tried. They got the ball out on the edges some. They used the toss sweep. They used a couple little screen passes.
I didn't, and that's the thing. It's like I didn't think they did it enough, and that sounds counterintuitive to like say we didn't try to run wide on the fast SEC team enough, but like they weren't getting anything up the middle.
I don't know. Jerome had 5.5 yards to carry.
Yeah, but it was like.
Would you have liked to have seen Jerome more?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because the passing game clearly, like,
for
if
sure,
you'd have leaned on Jerome maybe a little more heavy, then maybe the passing game comes around a little bit.
But I mean, it's a combination of him and Dez. I would love to know why the first semi-designed run was an RPO on the first play of the second half.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to sit here and go,
Well, maybe it's because of what you talked about. The D-line was just staying home waiting for him on first and second down. I stress the D-line. I make them make a decision. Like, not like we're running the option or something, but like, you look back at the Georgia game, they had a play where they ran kind of an RPO / option play that set up Jerome Ford's run, his long touchdown run. Like offensively, we did not stress them at all. And I'm not talking about trick plays. I'm just talking about being creative and try and empty the bag, man. It's the national semifinals. You're a 2-touchdown underdog against the defending national champ. Like, who gives a shit? Like, you lose by 21 or you lose by 35. Who cares? Like, it's kind of like the, I know we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it in the preview episode, but like the Lane Kiffin thing. Lane kept going for it on fourth down, kept doing these things, knowing that that's the only chance we have to win.
Yeah.
We might get blown out because of it, and they did, because they all went wrong. Like, they didn't get the fourth downs. They didn't but that's your shot. Like, it didn't come across to me as a game plan designed to take advantage of the things that you could take advantage of. Like, you're like, why they didn't take any deep shots? Well, they didn't have any time to take any deep shots. But they also didn't. I mean, like, what was the design in the passing offense for the game?
Get the ball out wide. And Alabama kept batting it down at the line of scrimmage.
Right. So can you run some screens? Can you run like tunnel screens? Can you run, like quick throw, like even like not even like straight across throws, like instant, like, not even like a stop route type thing, but like just get it out as quick as you can. Get the ball to your playmakers. See what they can do. Like, get the ball to Trey Tucker on a jet sweep or a reverse. Like, I felt like we just lined up and was like, all right, here's what we do, and we're gonna do it and see what happens.
Yeah, but that's kind of Fickle's MO, right?
Well,
we're gonna be us.
It can be, but that's not beating Alabama. Because Georgia tried the same thing in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Georgia said
sometimes being you is not enough.
No, for sure. And I'm not saying any of that stuff would have made a difference. I just felt like what we saw, even if the execution was a lot better, the way they were playing the playing a cover 2, and like, I just felt like we weren't gonna put any drives together. We got down into the red zone-ish inside the 10-yard line on the first drive. And, I would have liked to have run the ball more there. Like, you had that long pass to Tyler Scott to set it up. They're kind of on their heels. Like,
you had a wide open throw to Alec Pierce that gets knocked down at the line. You have a throw to Alec Pierce that goes through his hands.
Right. Oh no, I'm not disagreeing with that. Like, that's the stuff that happens. But I don't know.
But you're disagreeing with it.
No, well, I disagreed with the slant play. I mean, you and I talked about that, and then I could just be me being, hard-headed. But like, I don't like your bread and butter with him is to use his size. And yes, he was wide open, and if it was not batted down, it would have been a touchdown. I just like using his size and playmaking ability and getting him away.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that size advantage against Alabama. Their corners are in that 6'2", 6'3" range. So
yeah, I don't care. I'm still doing it.
I don't care. I want to play to his size advantage. He doesn't have a size advantage. I don't care.
Well, I mean, the one guy's 6'1".
Yeah, but I mean, like a lot of times when he was making those, Superman catches, it's over guys 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, he's 6 inches up higher than them.
Yeah. He was 6 inches up higher than them on the slant pass that went right through his hands.
Yeah.
Just didn't bring it down. Trey Tucker didn't bring down the ball that goes right through his hands.
No, I mean, that was a great throw, too.
Yeah.
But
Probably that's his best throw of the day, other than maybe the Michael Young throw.
But like, and it's just, it's all nitpicking, and it's, it's just stuff that fans do and that we're supposed to do. I mean, we're never going to get information on it or anything, but like, I mean, Lenny and Josh were nowhere to be found.
That was frustrating. You got to find a way to get your tight ends involved.
Like, yeah, I didn't get it.
I feel you. Anything else you got notes on that you wanted to talk about on this here podcast?
Oh, I don't know. Special teams. I mean,
Special teams was great.
Punt coverage, didn't allow negative yards in punt return. 15 yards on the one kickoff that was returned
by Jamison Williams, who got smoked by Ty Van Fossen.
Yep. Mason Fletcher had an outstanding game and really a pretty outstanding season
for all things considered.
For freshmen in a situation that we're just not sure.
Replacing one of the best punters in school history.
Right. I mean, we got so used to, and that's, I'm sure we'll get into it with the coaching stuff, but like, we've gotten so used to, outside of the issues with field goal kicking, of like not even having to think about special teams.
Right.
Like, we just know they're going to be good. Whether it's kickoff return, punt return, or both coverage units. Like, we're just like, yeah, they'll be fine. And Mason was really good this year. So, I mean, hats off to him. He was really good in the game.
How about
because that's the kind of
billionaire strut after the 54-yarder?
And then he after he got pulled down and drew the unsportsmanlike penalty. But like in that type of a game, that was my concern. Was the offense can't get anything going. The defense plays well, but what happens when he hits a 37-yarder? And they're starting at the 40-yard line. It's just a kind of like a snowball thing. Like the dam can only be held up for so long. And that's kind of what we saw with the running game. Like, I mean, they were in it.
Yeah.
You don't recover that punt, muffed punt. It's the end of the half. You let them go and whatever ended up being 90-something yards. And it's 17-3 at halftime where if you recover that punt,
and it's 10-10 at halftime.
Or 10-6.
Yeah. And you get the ball.
And even going into the later parts of the game, it's 17-6. You intercept Bryce Young at like your own 47.
And you go backwards
16 yards backwards.
Yeah.
Like, that's just that has nothing to do with like play calling, or that's just not executing. That's just not being there in the moment. It's not getting doing your assignment. And so it doesn't matter, like, Alabama's just going to be like, okay, yeah, I mean, these guys aren't going to move the ball in us, whether it's because of us or whether they're just not playing well. They're not going to be able to sustain drives, and we're just not going to let them get any big plays, and we'll just, choke the life out of this game.
We mentioned Mason Fletcher. I think you also have to mention Tyler Scott and Trey Tucker, who were as good as we've ever seen as gunners on punt team. And Alabama tried to make plays in the punt return game. They returned 4 punts. There was 5 punts. They only fair caught once, and they got 8 yards.
Yeah, somehow 4 Alabama fans were right behind me, like in the whole UC section. And every time they would punt and not fair catch, they would just go nuts. They're like, why are we even trying to do anything here? Like, just get the ball to the offense and don't even mess around with this.
4 returns, 8 yards. That's outstanding against the team. And they tried. They brought the kid that had been hurt. Yeah,
JoJo Earl.
Yeah, they tried to bring him in there.
I thought he was going to fumble 2 of them. The one he caught, he was like a running catch to the side. And that was a tough catch to make. But yeah, you're just, what is it? That's
minus 8 yards.
Yeah, minus 8. Yeah,
minus 8, not 8. That's my bad. Minus 2 yards. I guess they lost a couple on the muff because the muff went backwards. So.
Yeah. The reality of it is, you played, the best team, the best program in the country since the playoff was started. You didn't play well. That's what you're going to get.
Yeah. Too true on that one. True or false, Ahmad Gardner leaves Cincinnati as the most dominant football player in the history of the program.
Yeah, for sure.
Jamison Williams, if not the best wide receiver in the country, top 2, top 3.
Yeah, I would put him in the top 3.
And on Sauce, he had 2 targets, 1 catch. The 1 catch, Sauce blew him up for a 2-yard loss.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have? 7 for 60 something.
66, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he hurt him with the reverse, and he killed him with that third and 16 catch.
Yeah. Which was, I think, either that was that one against a zone, or was that? I think that was against a zone. They went zone a lot on third down.
He got into the middle and kind of backpedaled, and no one kind of stumbled backwards a little bit, backpedaled to get the first down, and no one was there.
How do you have no one around Jamison Williams on 3rd and 16?
Who knows? Who knows?
We'll never see anything like him again.
No.
I'm confident in saying that. In the history of UC football, we'll never see anything like that dude again.
But doesn't give up a touchdown
in his career. He didn't give up no one. He didn't give up 20 yards in a game all year. In a game. A whole game of football. He did not have one game where he gave up 20 yards receiving.
Yeah.
It's banana land.
I mean, we'll have plenty of time to discuss. But
I don't think it's really even it's not a hot take. I think it's just fact that he was the most dominant player to ever put on red and black.
Oh, I mean, that's not. Yeah, I'm talking draft.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I mean, to do what he did for an extended period of time,
and then to go against that guy where everybody said, "Oh, well, he'll be exposed here. Jamison Williams is going to blow his doors off," and even Nick Saban went, "We're good."
Because
we're good.
But that's the thing with Alabama. We're good because we don't have to.
Yeah, we don't have to.
That was my whole thing with the season, that I didn't understand. The just not even attempting is so what you're telling me is that yes, he's very good, but you have even less of a shot of beating UC if you don't even attempt to get the ball to your best player.
Right.
Like, he might shut him down. He might intercept 3 of your passes or whatever. But that was my whole point during the year is like, you don't want to throw the ball to one side of the field? All right. Like, you're certainly not going to score any points or win if you don't even try. Alabama just has a lot of other good players that they can say, all right, we don't need to throw to him.
Right.
We'll do these other things.
They didn't throw at Kobe either, really.
No, I mean, Kobe had a good game too. They got their touchdown pass to Ja'Cory Brooks was on a
Arquan Bush.
kind of a
double
rub route out of the slot down the sideline. I mean, their first touchdown pass was a total busted coverage, miscommunication, missed whatever to Slade Bolden. And then the tight end drag was, I mean, they didn't use the tight end in the passing game as much as I thought they would. They used him more in the running game. But then they had the tight end drag kind of occur, and he just, got caught up in the traffic, and they kind of lost him. Todd says, will Sauce be there when the Bengals pick in the first round? Absolutely not.
PFF's right. They've got him as
PFF
corner number 5.
If Sauce doesn't go in the first 15 picks, I will be absolutely stunned. Stunned.
I'm with you, but I keep looking at these mocks, and he's down in the 20s,
Yeah,
mid-20s.
but Daniel Jeremiah has him as his number 1 corner.
I know. That's where I don't know how he's not the number 1 corner. He's tall. He's long.
I still think Derek Stingley is really, really, really good. Now, he didn't play this year, so...
And he had a bad last year.
Did he have a bad year, or did the whole defense have a bad year? Like,
was he or was he not CB1 on the worst passing defense in the country?
I know. But I don't think it's like this like automatic thing that he's like a top 5. Like, I still see people having him as like a top 5 pick. I'm not so sure about that. He's really, really good, but like, I think him and Ahmad are a lot closer than, like, you don't have to have Ahmad number 1, but PFF having him number 5 is fucking absurd.
Yeah. I concur. I think that's insanity. Yeah.
But we'll have plenty of stuff this year to talk about with the draft. So, and I think that's, we could talk about, I mean, have we exhausted the Cotton Bowl conversation?
Yeah, I don't have really anything else. Do you?
No, I mean, it kind of played out the way I thought.
Well, I mean, I predicted Alabama would score 27, and Alabama scored 27.
Yeah, what about the other part of it?
I predicted Alabama would score 27. And Alabama scored 27. You predicted they'd score 37.
Yep. I also didn't predict they would lose.
Fair. But if I would have told you Alabama scored 20, you had Cincinnati scoring in the 20s.
21.
If I'd have told you Alabama scored 27, you definitely would have took it, right?
Oh, I'd have been like that. This should be a pretty close game. But then if you told me Alabama scored 27 with Brian Robinson running for 200 yards, I'd have been like, I don't. That means that they just boa constricted our ass.
Yeah, but there were still chances for the offense. I mean,
there were. Oh, I'm not excusing that. I'm like, there were plenty of chances. But for him to get to that number meant that they were dominating time of possession.
Yeah.
Because if we were converting on those chances, they wouldn't be running the ball that much.
True, because they'd have had to go to pass. But if they go to pass a little bit more, there's a good chance Cincinnati has an even better chance to win the game.
Right, but
didn't happen.
No,
that's really like what it comes down to, Dave. Luke Fickell mentions complimentary football when he talked about it post game. When it came down, there was no game pressure put on Alabama, and that's a young Alabama team. A lot of guys that had never been on this stage before. If you put game pressure on them, there's no telling how they respond to that.
That's why I said with our defense, yes, the pass defense was good, but we didn't stress them at all.
Right.
We did not force them to adapt to anything.
That's also because the offense couldn't score a fucking touchdown.
Right. Yeah, we didn't like the offense didn't do it, and then also the defense didn't stop the run well enough for them to go, oh well, we can't just bully ball them.
Right.
Like, how excited am I to go to the Senior Bowl? Probably not going, because we didn't end up applying for credentials, and I don't know if that deadline is passed or what.
Try it tomorrow.
So we'll see.
I'll still cover it. Try tomorrow and see if you can get credentials. If not, we'll DM Jim Nagy and say, hey.
Yeah.
Now we got 7. There's 7 Bearcats in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I saw that. Jerome Ford's going now.
Yeah.
How does that work? I thought you had to be a senior.
He is.
He is?
It's his 4th year in college, and he has a degree.
Okay.
He graduated, so, I mean, he's technically a senior. He just was a senior with eligibility, so they don't, they don't necessarily list him as like a exhausted eligibility senior, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess you can't really give out an invite until you know if the
player is available. Right.
So what is your takeaway next? Like, where do we go from here type thing?
I mean, you're obviously going to have a lot of holes to fix, a lot of holes to plug in 2022. But I still think this is going to be a team that competes for the American Athletic Conference championship.
I do too.
That
might be. How much of that is us?
That the conference was dog shit this year?
Right. Thinking that the conference is still going to be pretty.
I think Houston will be really good.
The conference will still be whatever. And I don't want to overvalue our own, because we have so many questions. Like, I hope people realize, like, how legit, like, everything fell into just the perfect place, and how many questions there really are moving forward.
I don't think there are as many as people think.
Really?
I really don't. I think they'll be okay on the defensive line.
Can we get to the quarterback?
I think it'll be a different style of getting to the quarterback, but I think they can. I think it'll be more power than just Maje's pure speed. But
the power guy's gone too.
In the middle, yes. But I think we saw Jawan Briggs really come on. I'm interested to see if that's a possibility that you move him back inside. But even if he's outside, we saw him break through and towards the end of the season look good. I think he'll still be okay at linebacker. You've got Ivan Pace in the fold now. You've got Deshaun Pace. Jaheim Thomas, I thought, flashed when he had a chance. I know there's a chance for Wilson Huber to come back that I think would be very beneficial. The question defensively is clearly going to be the secondary.
Oh, yeah.
I think the front is going to be okay. What does the secondary look like, and how far is the drop, right?
But that's the thing is, like, 2 years in a row, they've basically had the number one pass efficiency defense in the country.
Right, so how far is the drop?
They've led the nation in turnovers forced this year.
I think you still have talent in the secondary.
You do. They just never played.
They've just never played.
That's especially at corner. That is a scary proposition.
Yeah, for sure.
In this league, the way teams want to attack you, and we've seen it. Like, as UC's offense has gotten better, and they've gotten better wide receivers, they've done some of the same stuff to the teams that don't have very good defensive backfields.
Yeah, I mean, safety, I think, is a bigger concern than corner, because I think there's still a lot of talent in that corner room. I
Yeah,
like
I think
Todd
there's guys
Bumpus a
there.
lot.
It kind of reminds me of our thoughts on the defensive line last year.
No, the year before when Cortez and Cope left.
Yeah, and Kamani left. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
So we
thought there were guys, we just had never seen them, so you don't know what you don't know yet.
I mean, you're still going to have Bush, who you would have to think probably moves outside. But I mean, maybe you keep him in the slot just because he's been so good at it.
Well, and I'm starting to wonder, like, his body.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he can keep up with the speed guys on the outside.
But you have Jaquan Shepard, who I think is solid. You have Bumpus, you have Anderson, you have Justin Harris coming back from a neck injury.
And they'll get better when they're getting all of those main reps in spring and fall and game. I mean, it's hard to like evaluate a corner in a blowout when they're coming off the bench cold in the fourth quarter and the other team's still chucking it all over the place. Like that's hard to gauge, like whether how good a guy is or isn't.
You have J.Q. Hardaway coming in, who's going to be here for spring ball, I believe. He's enrolling early, so he should be here this weekend with the early enrollees. I think, but safety, I mean, Hicks, we don't know his decision yet.
If he comes back, the other position is just, I mean, who the hell knows?
Jack Dingle, Brian Threats, Isaiah Cox, Armorion Smith. You got a couple freshmen coming in. I mean, there's a lot of names.
Well, there's bodies, but
I mean, most of those names haven't even taken a lot of practice snaps.
Right. I mean, we're going from 5-year super senior playing every snaps, for the last 2.5 year DBs to dudes that have never played.
Right.
It could go fine. Yeah. It could be a fucking disaster.
Absolutely. And then offense, your whole offensive line is back. You've got Tyler Scott, Trey Tucker, Jaden Thompson. I think Chris Scott can be in line for a breakout year. I think Will Pauling could be a guy that you see emerge next year.
Yeah. See what happens with the tight ends.
You see what happens with the tight ends with Lenny and Josh. I would be surprised if one of them doesn't. If they both leave, I'd be a little surprised. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's
it's possible. It's definitely possible that both leave. It's just such a, and Jim Nagy talked about this when we had him on the show. It's a really deep, really talented tight end class.
Right.
So, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least one of them say, I'm going to wait a year and see what I can do for my stock.
Does the offense go back to looking like a little more of the Mike Warren year?
Do you have a Mike Warren?
I just mean from like a running control standpoint.
Who's the quarterback?
Not one guy getting 30 carries a game, but
who's the quarterback?
Well, that's what I mean.
Look, we've talked about this for months. I'm confident they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback to compete with Evan Prater. If Prater's the quarterback, yeah, it's probably a little bit more run oriented, right?
Let me just say this: like,
that's not a terrible thing.
That isn't necessarily an indictment on Evan.
No, it's a numbers game in the quarterback room.
Say they don't bring a quarterback in, and Evan's the starter, and he gets hurt in the second game, the season is over, man. Like, right. You can like these guys all you want. Like, you're just throwing dudes in there at that point that are as green gets. Like, good luck.
Right.
Because our expectations as fans, while you understand that you're replacing the talent and the depth and the 30 seniors and the super senior, our expectation, and I'm assuming Coach Fickle, whoever's on the staff, Their expectation is not going to be, oh, well, we had that good 2-year run. All these guys are gone. If we go 4-8, whatever.
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal. No, the expectation is, yes, we realize it might not look like it did the last 2 years, and it might not result in a college football playoff. But come November, we still want to be in position to win the conference.
Right.
And that's not like, that's why you bring in, it's just insurance. It's numbers. Like, you can't be one injury away from a 3-win season when you're coming off of a college football playoff berth.
You can't look. This is not an indictment on any of these three kids, right? You can't go into a season and have your quarterback room be Evan Prater, Brady Lichtenberg, Luther Richardson.
You can't have it be that if you're wanting to win a league championship.
Right. If you're hitting the reset button, right?
If you're totally rebuilding and everybody knows this is a total reset year, which it can't be because of the COVID returnees and the other players that are still coming back. Then
2017 was a total reset year. Your quarterback room, essentially, you had Hayden Moore, but it was Dez, Hayden Moore, and Ben Bryant.
Yeah.
And that was basically it because Ross Trail had left. You have to have more in that quarterback room than a redshirt sophomore, a redshirt freshman, and a true freshman that have combined taken, 20 snaps?
Yeah, I mean, how many throws did Evan really make this year?
Yeah. 4 or 5?
Was the last game he played Temple?
I think so.
Did he play against UCF?
He might have got a couple snaps late because the guy did get out of hand.
So that was October 16th?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just think that's bad. That's bad roster management if that's what you're going into next year in your quarterback room.
I agree. I mean, it even looks a little different, like even if Ben Bryant left and Michael Lindauer's still here. And that's a guy that's in year 4 in the system. And granted, he doesn't have a lot of game repetition yet, but that's a guy that's been through, 3 years of higher ground and practice every day. And like, you should know at that point in time whether Michael Lindauer is going to be able to help you or not. But
yeah, like if the nuclear option happens, can this guy go in and function as a starting quarterback?
Right. So, I mean, it makes sense to add a veteran quarterback. I think it makes sense still with Jerome gone to add a running back in the transfer portal. Yeah. It makes sense to add a boundary wide receiver to replace Alex Pierce.
It makes sense to make your roster better.
Yes.
I don't really give a shit what position it's at.
And here's something else people need to realize. Okay, I'll wait.
What?
Go ahead.
Like the transfer portal, good, bad, ugly, great. Like it's a thing now. It's not going away. These kids, and it shouldn't go away. It should have been here a long time ago, in my opinion. Like your job is to make your roster as good as you can make it.
Yep.
If somebody already on the roster doesn't like that, they're free to go someplace that they see more benefit to them. Like that's just part of the deal. Like, you can say like we're good at this position and we're good at that. Like, I don't really care. Like, get the best players you can get. If the guys on the team don't like the competition that you've built this program on, that's what your identity is, tough and nasty, Clifton style. If someone on the roster doesn't like that you brought somebody in at their position, they might not have been the guy that you thought they were. And they can go somewhere else. And that's totally fine too.
Yeah. I think if you can find a tackle, what I was going to say is though, before I get to that, before I continue on that path, I think there is also this misconception that like the transfer portal closes at signing day in February. You know when a ton of kids also hit the transfer portal?
As soon as school starts in the fall.
Well, also no, because they're not really going to help you
Well,
at that
summer.
point. As soon as spring ball ends.
Mm-hmm.
Because guys see, okay, maybe I'm not where I'm at on the depth chart, or
Right.
I was promised a starting spot and I'm in a competition with this guy and I didn't like how spring ball went. Like, you have to remember there's a very good case made for not shooting all your bullets right now. And by right now, I mean over the next week and a half, because the kids that you're going to get early are going to be kids that are going to be able to enroll. And
well, I don't
they're gonna
remember the
be able to participate in the spring.
I don't remember the specific guys, but there were in the summer last year, there were guys that were like notable players that would pop up and people would come on the board and be like, what about him? And we'd be like, we don't have any spots.
Right.
And then 2 days later, somebody else, what about him? And we're like, Jesus Christ, we don't have any spots. Like it
so
happened,
now you're
it
in a
happened like
position to have
clockwork
spots.
once a week.
Now you're in a position to maybe hang on to 3, 4 spots, 5 spots that you can use in the spring and that you can use in the summer to better your roster to where you're not maxed out.
Well, that's the thing. Would you rather sign a high school kid in February that is probably going to be in the back end of your class?
Right.
Or would you rather hold those spots and see what generates in the transfer portal?
Well, and it's been interesting because, Dave, if you look, man, the first signing period changed everything. Because if you don't sign in the first signing period, there's usually issues anymore. Like, when, you know, if you go back to like when that first started, which I believe was the Tavion Thomas, Leonard Taylor,
yeah,
you know, that 2018 class, that was the first year and people were still figuring it out. The numbers that sign early now are astronomical.
Yeah, it's like 80% of the top, whatever, 247 or
yeah.
If you don't sign in December, you're basically not committed to the team that you were committed to.
Right.
They are recruiting over you.
Yep.
Unless you are, you know,
5-star.
And then they're not. But anybody that you see has committed that doesn't sign, I would be stunned. I mean, and we could go. I don't even know if we could go back and look because I don't even know if there's been anybody besides Danny Lewis in this class. Like, I will be.
There's
floored.
been a couple, but there were issues like Savion Herring. We knew he was going to have to go to JUCO.
I would be floored if Danny Lewis signed with UC in February.
Yeah, I mean with Denbrock at LSU, that's.
But I just mean just in general, like
right.
Like Luke, if you've been committed to Luke's program for however many months, or even maybe maybe you committed in November and then you don't sign, he's not like he's forgotten about you.
Yeah. Well, they've moved on.
That's what I mean. Like he's forgotten
and they
who
tell
you
the
are.
kids
They've moved on. Like you're no one to him at this point.
And they let the kids know that. Like if you don't come here when you say you're going to come here, we're going to find somebody else like at your spot because we're not going to go into, you know, we recruited you as a need.
Yeah, they're not going to get caught with their pants down.
Right. We're not just
come February.
Slide away. So offensive line, if there's a tackle that pops up, yeah. Like a tackle with experience.
Because they're still it's a numbers thing there too.
Yeah.
It's not that the tackles they have, they don't feel good about. It's that there's not enough of them.
Right. Defense, I think they're okay for the most part unless they can find an edge rusher on the defensive line. And guess what?
There's a ton of those out there.
Yeah. There's none of them out there. And if they are out there, Alabama and Georgia are calling.
Well, I mean, like the number one kid in the transfer portal is an edge rusher from Albany.
Yeah. Now, he had 15 and a half sacks in 13 games.
But that's what I mean. Like, he's
right.
the best one.
Right. There's just there's not they're not out there. You and
Yeah.
I every day text about relevant guys that enter in the transfer portal. How many times have you sent me a 6'4", 250-pound rush end?
Once.
Yeah. So, and that was more of an inside guy, even, I think. Like, as you looked at the kid, or a 3-tech.
I mean, if you're impactful defensive end, you're either on your team and really good, and you're not transferring,
or you're going to the NFL.
Or you're going to the NFL.
I mean, with Ivan Pace, they don't really need an addition at linebacker. And in the defensive backfield, like as is the case with defensive ends, if you're a shutdown boundary corner, you're staying with your team, or you're going to the NFL.
I would think they would be more.
I would
think they would be more interested in a safety than even with.
They are. I mean, they're looking. They're they're definitely. From what I know, they definitely are in the market for one of those. But I think they like what they have in those young safeties. You just don't have anybody that's played.
Right.
Makes it tough. Makes it tough for sure. Mike Denbrock gone. I don't think that's a huge surprise. I think it was getting to the point in the progression of this program. Is Gino going to be your offensive coordinator, or is Gino going to leave?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And that's not a referendum on Mike. That's not it's just, it is what it is. Like, Gino was going to be the offensive coordinator at Central Michigan 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then he came here. Like, if it's going to happen, now's the time for it to happen. I'll be shocked if it's not Gino Guidugli that's the offensive coordinator.
That would be pretty stunning.
Do I think Luke Fickell will do his due diligence and make sure that he's hiring the right guy? Absolutely.
Well, sure. It goes back to like when we talk about coaches and why won't the coach just come up on the press conference and say, I love school X and I'm never leaving? It's because, well, what happens if the next day something is presented to him that he had no idea about? It's kind of the same thing here. Like, do we think it'll be Gino? Yes. Would be pretty surprised / stunned if it's not? Yes. But what if someone that Luke's known 20 years that he never would have thought to even ask calls him and says, hey, you guys are moving to the Big 12. You got this thing rolling. I'd love to come work with you. We've never gotten to work together. We worked together a long time ago, and we had such a close connection. Let's work together. Like, you just don't know. So you can't
at this point, like, I was a GA at Ohio State in 2006, and now I've got this, extensive resume, like whatever the case may be.
You just don't know to say like, oh, it's not possible. Like, this is 100% slam dunk going to happen. I'd still be stunned if it didn't.
Right.
But I'd be stunned if it didn't, because that meant they hired someone like really, really good.
Right.
Or someone that Luke has known a long, long time that he has a ton of trust in, and we all trust him. So,
I'd be surprised if it's not Gino.
I know everybody's in their feels about hiring former UC football players as coaches, but
I'd be surprised if it's not Gino.
Me too.
Tight end, I think, could be anyone.
Oh, no idea. I mean,
anyone. I mean, you could have won $1 million if you'd have hit the parlay of Mike Brown and Darren Page.
Right, exactly.
When those jobs came open.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could have pegged, where was Mike Brown before he came here?
I think it was at Liberty, right? That's where he played.
He played at Liberty. Was that?
He was at Liberty as an assistant.
Okay, so yeah, and then Darren was at Eastern Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, like, yeah, if when those jobs open, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna hire the Liberty wide receiver coach and the Eastern Michigan running back coach. I've been like, okay, sure.
Now, Eastern Michigan does have a tight end coach that's pretty good that has ties.
We do.
To Luke Fickell. That would mean he has ties to Darren Page, I believe, because I don't think this was his first year there.
No, I don't think so.
So that could be one to watch.
Could be.
Special teams, man, losing Mace hurts.
Oh, big time.
That guy was masterful. Now, the field goal kicking was a problem, but I don't.
I'm not sure that's coaching. Like, how much coaching are you really giving a kid? You know, I think in college, your field goal kicking coaching is coming. They can obviously help you. They know enough, but like that's coming in the summer. That's coming with your kicking.
Well, and how much can you do if you've got a guy that's making 4 out of every 5 in practice, and you get in a game and he can't put the ball through the uprights?
Well, and also you're dealing with the most players of any coach on the team, so you're also dealing with all your coverage units and everything else.
But UC's punt return units were very good. I mean, how many times? Not only did they get a block, but how many times did Ryan Montgomery have an opportunity to get upfield for 10, 12, 14 yards? Like maybe it wasn't a touchdown, but you know, if you get your offense an extra first down and a half on a punt return, you know, that's spectacular. As we talked about, their punt coverage teams were otherworldly. Their kickoff teams, both return and coverage, were outstanding. Their punter was outstanding. Like in every phase, Brian Mason ran a tip-top operation as a special teams coach.
Yeah.
So that one's going to hurt.
For sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there now that like the analytics of having a strong special teams has become more and more prevalent.
You can really tell who gives a shit and who doesn't.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious when you play a team that does not, you know, give it the same amount of time that you give it.
Right. UC gave it a lot of time.
Todd asked, do they have the money now to spend like Big 12 teams?
Are they in the Big 12?
No, because they don't have that money yet.
Now, there potentially will be more money if you promote Gino to offensive coordinator, because I don't think you're giving him all of Denbrock's salary yet. I think you're giving him a nice raise.
Denbrock was the highest paid assistant coach at like $475,000.
Yeah.
So like people wonder why coaches leave. He's getting paid $1.4 million, man. Like
tripled his money.
All guaranteed. Like
yeah, multi-year contract, guaranteed. 3 years, right? Is what I saw.
Yeah.
3 years, 1.4. So what? $10 million or not 10 million, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.2 or whatever $1 million guaranteed for a guy that's been making, you know, $300,000, $400,000 in his career. Now all of a sudden, over the next 3 years, he gets $4.2 million. That changes your fucking life, right?
Well, I mean, and then some. Like, I mean, just put it on like our terms. If you're making $100,000 a year, and someone offered you $400,000 a year, personally, I wouldn't care if the job was to shovel shit for 12 hours a day, nonstop. Where's my shovel and my pile of shit? We go. Like, you're going to give me 4 times, like not 4. It's not like you're making, you know, $2 an hour. And now you're making $8 an hour. Like, you're making so much more money.
Yeah. So yeah.
And, I'm sure. And that's the thing too, is like these coaches live these nomad lives. if you're Denver and you're able to stay at a place for 5 years, that's insane for an assistant coach.
Yeah, he got to raise his kid, who's not young, but like
No, but you live
fairly young.
these nomad lives. You never know. Like, you're one bad season away from being the fall guy, even if it wasn't your fault. Like,
Right.
and that's not just him. I mean, like any assistant coach, you have a bad season, and it's like, oh, let's fire the offensive line coach because we couldn't run the ball, even though I gave him we have no good players, and our running backs stink.
Right.
And so it's like you're one bad season away from getting run out of town, and I don't blame any of these guys for being like, you're going to double, triple, quadruple my salary. I need to protect me and my family.
Yeah. And I'm sure Mace got a pretty healthy raise.
Yeah, he was probably either the lowest or second lowest paid coach on the staff. If I had to guess.
I don't know about that. I would guess he was above.
I mean, we can look it up, but
Brown,
I'm too
above-
lazy
yeah,
to
above
do it.
Brown, above Page.
He was making in the hundreds. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And he ain't making in the hundreds no more.
No, and he's got a young baby. Like, go get your money, Mace.
They're from
Go get your
Indiana,
money.
like,
Yeah.
and he's
Great
a young guy
family,
too.
yeah.
Like, that's the other thing is like,
He's got like 8 degrees. He
He's
did
young-
not get those
he's-
for free.
well, he's young as could be too. Like, same thing as like Marcus. Like, so you go to here for a couple years, and then you go. So like, it's not like you're at the end of your career. Like,
Right.
you're already at Notre Dame at this point in your career. Like, that's not saying that's as good as it's going to get, but like, you don't
Pretty
get
damn
that,
good.
You're not going to get that opportunity like many other top level jobs. Like, you'd be an absolute moron not to jump on that.
I think there are a couple others that are getting interest, which is, again, not a surprise. One that has been talked about is Mike Brown. The sense I get is he is definitely a name that Virginia Tech has interest in. I have not gotten a feel that like he's their guy, right? Like that they've like with Mason Denbrock, we knew
that they're like in contract negotiations. And...
yeah, like it's pretty far down the road. The thing that would worry me with Mike Brown is he's from Virginia. He's got a young family. I believe his wife is from that area, so she could be wanting to get back closer to home. Like these are all the things you have to kind of take into consideration.
And the thing too to look at in some of these situations, new head coach.
Yeah.
So
you've got some.
They're gonna get some leeway to build their programs up. This isn't like.
Although anymore, man, like there's
but you'll get. Like we'll use Virginia Tech for an example. A lot of people thought Witt was going to fire Fuente last year, and he didn't.
Right.
He's going to give
his guy. He hired.
He's going to give Brent Pry time.
Right.
Like, they're not unless it's just an abject disaster right from the jump. Like they're going to get time.
I can't get into what else I've heard yet, but there's a couple other names that I'm tracking that. I know just are being kicked around. And like I said, probably in the stage of like, there are other schools that are kicking the tires, not necessarily that person is like the person of interest or.
Right. They're having conversations. They're having interviews.
Yeah.
And it works both ways. Like just because someone is talking to another school, they're trying to find out information on if they think it's the right move for them too.
Right.
But I mean,
we'll continue to monitor that. Like I've been on the phone all week.
I know we have a segment that gets worried that everybody's going to leave, and it's
not Luke still here.
It's what we've.
Is Luke still here? That's the question. Like, okay, so that I'm good.
Just better pray that guy in Columbus is using the Bears as a leverage play.
I don't know. I don't know that Ohio State instantly like Luke Fickell's atop their list. I don't know that that's a slam dunk.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
from talking to people up there, I don't know that it's just an automatic. Like if Ryan Day left, they just hire Luke.
I would
Fickell
just
and move
rather
on.
Ryan Day use the Bears as a leverage play to sign a long-term contract than find out.
Sure, I'd rather Ryan Day leave, Luke Fickell stays, and I gain another like 200 members during the coaching search.
Yes, that
If we're being
would
honest.
also be good. But
coaching searches are good for business, and I've learned coaching searches where your coaches stay are awesome because you don't have to change everything. You get the boost of a coaching search. I'm looking for more of those.
Right. Personally, I don't want him to leave because like 5 guys I had on my hot board when the Notre Dame thing was possibly happening have all taken other jobs.
Yeah.
so I don't. I'm not sure what that would mean.
We're gonna need another year or two for that old hot board to refuel. Like it's a Tesla that's plugged in right now.
If he were to something goofy was to happen, he were to leave, we'd have a lukewarm board because I'm not sure anybody would be too thrilled about the options.
A lukewarm board. That might be the funniest thing you've ever said on this podcast, Dave. My cheeks hurt from that one. Oh, that's outstanding.
But, I mean, it's par for the course, man. I mean, you have the years that they've had, 2 years that they've had. In the conference that they're still in, other people know the budget restrictions.
They played with Georgia. They played with Bama.
These assistant coaches are going to get money thrown at them because the boosters at these schools are going to go, oh, you want the UC, you're trying to get the UC coach? Oh, yeah, we'll help you out there.
Right.
Like, they want what we've got. I mean, you and I talked about it, and I use Saban as an example. He rebuilds his staff a little bit differently every year, but I mean, like, his Rolodex is quite a bit different than Luke's, but it's still the same. Like, everybody wants a piece of that Alabama magic.
Right.
He just pulls from, ex-NFL head coaches or your offensive line coach. Like, it's just a little bit different tree that he's pulling from. But the concept is the same. Like,
right.
These schools that are on hard times are like, we can go get UC's guys, and we can, maybe we can get a little bit of that magic.
And so far, outside of Tressel, Luke has favored more the young, hungry, up-and-coming guy.
Yeah.
Hitchler, Brown, Page, Scruggs, even. Like when he made his first staff was experienced, very veteran.
As a first-time head coach, I think that was smart.
Yeah, Willie Martinez and Tenuta and Joker Phillips and Crook and Denbrock and outside of Freeman, like that was a really old staff.
Doug
Phillips, who wasn't as big and didn't have the resume the other guys had, but it was an older guy that had been around a long time.
Right.
He's gone more young and hungry.
And the other thing too is like, and we've had so much turnover at some, you're just going to have it. But like, I don't really think of a position where we were like, oh man, that outside of like once the initial staff cycled through.
Yeah.
Where we're like, oh, he missed on that one. Like that was a bad hire. Like he's pretty much.
They've been strong. Minimum strong.
I do wonder though, like, he also seems to be like very deliberate with these things. I wonder if he has to show a little bit more urgency, depending on how many guys that end up leaving.
Yeah,
because like I remember when he hired Page, he kind of came out of the blue to us later in the process, and we were like, I was at least thinking like this is taking like a little longer than I thought hiring a running backs coach would take.
Yeah, but I think that for whatever reason, they had a bunch of candidates for that, and I think when Page knocked, like usually like you line them up in order, and you want the guy you're probably going to hire to go last. I think Page went a little earlier in the process and blew their socks off, and I think it kind of like
made him reset
stunted
things,
the process, right? Like,
reset things.
hold on a second. We got to make sure that we hire the right guy, because after that interview, we think this might be the right guy. You know what I mean? But Brown took a while. Now, if Brown leaves, I think the move's pretty obvious, right?
Well, if it's not, then he's not going to be a wide receiver coach here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been here a couple years.
He needs to go somewhere else. And
he's been a wide receiver coach at Hampton. He's been here a couple years. He's been a couple years at Notre Dame. Like, if Armand Benz is ready, now's the time.
Well, and if he's not, like, why do you even have him on staff?
Yeah, then he needs to go somewhere else and get experience and come back if that's, the long-term plan. Yeah. So that's the answer to the Mike Brown thing. Gino at quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, and Armand Benz at wide receiver coach. Oh, how happy would this fan base be? How about the part of this fan base that all of a sudden?
The only thing that would make them happier is if Kerry Combs came back.
Special teams coach. Can you hire Braden Combs as special teams coach and get the same?
He was the first person that came to my mind.
Can you hire a guy with insubordination on his resume?
Is insubordination against Matt Patricia really a bad thing? I mean, who do you think?
No, your thoughts suck. Like, I'm doing my no.
Who do you think was making the right call? The guy that Darren Simmons says is like one of the best up and coming special teams coaches in the league, or Matt Patricia? But he also isn't doing anything this year, so I don't know what happened with all of that.
Well, I mean, he got fired for insubordination.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know how coaching is. They don't care.
Well, they give you a year off, and then you go rehab yourself somewhere, which rehabbing himself as a special teams coach at Cincinnati would be an interesting development.
But I definitely thought about him right away.
Aaron says insubordination against Patricia being a bad thing was a funnier comment than lukewarm board. I don't know. What I was going to say to that is, Dave, you're having a hell of a podcast today.
Hey, I'm trying to bring it, man. It's a new year, new year, new me.
New year, same you. Just really funny. Great one-liners in this podcast. So I guess that's where we're at right now. How big is recruiting for a special teams coach? It's always big. Like,
I think you're
not adding someone that can't recruit at this point.
No, and I think that gets amplified going into the Big 12. I always think there's some staffs that you have that it's okay to have a couple guys that are like your true ball coaches, and like a John Tenuta. Like, John Tenuta wasn't fucking recruiting.
Right.
But as you move up and you know that your opponent talent level is going to go up, you can't have more than one or two of those guys. Now, they can't all be, ace, amazing recruiters. But they also
can't be able to recruit.
They also can't be Dan Mullins, who don't have any interest in doing it.
Tight ends coach, special teams coordinator, you got to recruit.
Oh yeah,
you got to recruit. Those are not where the old ball coach is positioned.
No, Dan Mullen is like the X's and O's guy, and didn't care about recruiting, and he's the head coach of a top 5 program.
Right. I'm just I'm saying, in those hires, those have to be spots that can recruit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Running back coach, wide receiver coach, tight end, special teams. Maybe you can get away with a linebacker coach that's an X and O's guy that doubles as your defensive coordinator, or, but a quarterback coach has to be a great recruiter.
Yeah, I mean, you have to recruit the quarterback position harder than any position on your team.
Corners and wide receivers has to be a great recruiter, because you got to be able to identify the guys that can play in your system.
And you need a lot of them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's got to be something that's critical for a special teams coach. Absolutely. You got anything else on football?
I don't know.
Ivan Pace. What are your thoughts on adding Ivan Pace?
My main thought is just that you have a linebacker group that we, outside of Deshaun and if Wilson Huber comes back, we like, but we don't know anything about. And I just think it's a good move from the standpoint of adding a guy that has played a lot. So, like, I don't know what that means from is he a starter? Is he a rotational guy? I don't know. There's plenty of time for that to get figured out. But when you're replacing so many snaps at linebacker, I prefer to replace them with someone that's played and has played well. Like he's not just some dude. Like
right.
He's the first.
He's a third-team All-American.
First team All-Mac. Second, had over 100 tackles this year. First, second leading tackler in the conference. And his pass rushing prowess has been wildly exaggerated thanks to his six sack game in 2019.
Yeah.
But he can still do it. I just think he's not like this 3-4 TJ Watt crazy, like he's going to get to the quarterback all the time type guy.
Right. But here's what I would say to the people that are worried about his height, right?
It means nothing. Man.
But look, just can I finish, Dave?
No.
You're getting like Aaron. You just like to stop me before I can finish. Perry Young was pretty good. Wasn't he?
He was.
Gerald White was pretty good. I think he made some plays. I think Greg Blair was pretty good. Jeff Luke was pretty good. Like they've had guys in that height where like I know they prefer guys that are 6'4" and 265 pounds because everybody prefers guys that are 6'4" and 255 pounds. But in college football, Ivan Pace can help you.
Well, and I think that's the other thing is like we all fall victim to the projections. Like sometimes you're just a really damn good college football player, and that's as good as you're going to be.
Yeah,
and we don't,
and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is college football,
right? Like it's not necessarily like, well, how's this guy going to translate to the next level? Like, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Maybe he doesn't go to the next level because he's only 6 foot. Just like Perry hasn't gone to the next level. Just like Jarrell hasn't gone to the next level. Like, but they. Would you say that you didn't want them because they were 5'8" and 5'9" or whatever?
I think those guys could play. So
yeah.
I think this guy has a chance to prove he can play.
I agree.
I don't have much more on football. That was an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes on football.
That I as a draft dork cannot wait
for this spring and summer
for the build up to the draft. Like I don't know if people fully grasp how much attention UC is going to get from now until April, and
a lot.
And how much that does for recruiting.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as the NFL season is over in February, the scouting combine happens.
Yeah.
And ESPN and the NFL Network dedicate so much time to the combine. UC will have a ton of guys there. UC is going to have, 7 guys at the Senior Bowl. There will be daily segments about Desmond Ridder, about UC players. Then you go to the whole workup to the draft. Just shows and segments dedicated every single day to the draft, and specifically like to the quarterbacks. Desmond Ridder will be talked about almost every single day on ESPN and the NFL Network for a month straight. Like
Sauce Sauce has
Oh,
become a household name.
For sure. But
Did you see his draft declaration had like 30,000 likes?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, you should read the mentions of like the PFF tweet about him being CB5.
yeah,
It's fans of every team being like, I hope he's there when the Ravens pick. I hope he's there when the Eagles pick. It's like, but that, like, can you win a title? Might not, I mean, it's up there, but like proximity to where I'm from and can you get me to the league are the two biggest things in recruiting.
yep,
And that was the last piece that UC has been missing was yes, they had guys drafted, but like it's a little bit different to make a graphic with Derek Forrest getting drafted in the 5th round and James Wiggins getting drafted in the 6th round versus a graphic of Des Ritter, Sauce Gardner, and Myjai Sanders being 3 of the first 64 guys picked.
yeah.
It's a little
For
bit
sure.
different when the recruiting department can literally every single day cut something from the NFL Network or ESPN and put it on Twitter about their guy and being drafted in the 1st round.
Yep.
Like, it is the final frontier of UC recruiting is putting 7 to 10 guys in one draft and going, here, look at this. Like,
Yeah.
all
In the
those-
year that you went 13-0 and played
Right.
the playoff.
Yeah. Like, we
Yeah.
can do this again with you. Recruit, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be like, there's going to be so much. It's going to be awesome.
Is Kobe one of the first 10 corners drafted? I think that's going to be
I would say no.
very reliant on his 40 time, Dave. If he busts out a 4.3, like a legit like 4.41 or,
I still think that would be hard because if you're a top 10 corner taken,
he won the Thorpe Award.
Okay. I don't think NFL teams really give a shit about that. It recognizes you for being good, but like if you're a top 10 corner drafted, you're probably going in like the first 75 picks. I'm not sure I quite see that high of a ceiling for him in the draft.
I'm not saying I do. I'm
Because
saying
like I know that there's
look, Derek
probably
Forrest didn't have a lot of people praising him going into that draft, and then he busted out a 4.42.
Well, and he went in the 5th round.
Yeah, but Kobe won the Thorpe Award.
I get it, but what I'm saying is corner is different. There's 5 guys that are going in the 1st round that I could name you right now.
Corner is different. So if there's 5 guys going in the 1st round, and he's projected as a late 2nd, early 3rd.
It also is very, very team specific. Like, are they a zone team? Or are they
Well, Kobe's going to be a field corner.
Right.
You're not drafting him to play the boundary.
Right. And it just depends
That's
on
where
what
it might
that
hurt him.
team is specifically looking for. Do we want a man field corner that is this height, runs this speed?
Right.
I think Myjai will be a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that's his sweet spot.
I think you're right.
His production.
He just didn't have the counting stats.
Right. And, and I'm not sure that should be an end all be all, but I think from like a defensive end standpoint, if you're going to use a 1st round pick on a defensive end, you need to know that like this guy's going to get to the quarterback. Like
Right.
Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson.
Not just that he's going to get the quarterback off his spot, but he's going to get him to the ground.
Like Ajabo from Michigan, who's kind of a defensive end / outside linebacker. Now, I mean, if he has a great Senior Bowl, if he has a great combine, if he has a great interview, could he? Sure. I mean, Peyton Turner, it only takes one team. Like nobody thought Peyton Turner from Houston last year was going to go in the 1st round, and the Saints took him.
Yep.
Like, I think it was probably a bad pick, but
it happened.
But it happened, and you only need one team. So could he? Sure. I just think his sweet spot's the 2nd round.
I think you're probably right. I think I would agree with that. We're at the point where I don't have time for basketball tonight. Do you want to talk basketball? Do you have anything basketball you want to say?
No, not really.
Play better.
I didn't watch any of the Tulane game because I was coming back
driving hell, right?
in a monsoon, and that I think was better than watching the Tulane game.
Thoughts on are you? Here's what I want to know. Here's my biggest question of the podcast: will you make it to tip off tomorrow night?
Oh, be awake?
Yeah.
9:30. I mean, that's pushing it. Yeah, I'll be awake.
Will you make it to halftime? No.
Absolutely not.
So you'll see the ball get tipped. What media stop will you be asleep by?
Well,
the under 8?
It kind of depends. Is the game entertaining? Like, if it's entertaining, I'm more willing to like stay up and watch it.
Okay.
Like, if it's not entertaining, I'm not staying up till 11:30 to watch a non-entertaining basketball game.
Right. I get that. That's fair.
Like,
nor would we expect you to.
You know, if that's your thing, by all means, you know, do what you do. But like,
right,
this team is not like, they're kind of exactly what we talked about. But then you have a game like Tulane where you come out and you don't play hard. Like, they kind of need to have a better understanding of what they can and can't do. And I think until they have that, then it's going to be hard for them to beat the better teams, let alone like the not really good teams.
Right.
Will Wes take his jacket off before my head hits the pillow? No, because I'll be in bed.
Yeah, the head will be on the pillow.
When the game starts, I'll be in bed.
His head will be on the pillow. It's just a matter of when his eyes are closed.
Yeah.
What you got any Bengals thoughts?
Here was my obviously I'm thrilled. I've been the Joe Burrow draft pick. I was, driving the bus on that one early on in the process, but that's not like a really going out on a limb thing. But me being a staunch Jamar Chase guy, like a year beforehand, I will claim that one. But
and you deserve to claim that one. You earned that one.
Like, in true Bengal fan fashion, I said to my buddies today, could you imagine what our mood would be right now if they had lost the Chiefs and now all these guys are testing positive for COVID?
Oh, and they had to win against Cleveland?
Go to Cleveland to win
with the backups
to make the playoffs. Like, I mean, it's just like, just makes you laugh, and thank God that that's not the case. But I also said that, like, the Bengals, I'm not going to say that they're, gaming the system, but it is awfully coincidental that they have had virtually, compared to the rest of the NFL, no COVID issues. They make the playoffs, and now all of a sudden all these guys go on the COVID list so they can get a game off and rest in a game that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then they can't be tested for 90 days, which clears the path to the Super Bowl.
Hell of a coincidence, isn't it?
It's pretty wild.
I was going to make a joke, but I'll keep it to myself until we stop this podcast. What were the percentages you thought they were going to beat the Chiefs after UC lost to Alabama, and then the Tulane basketball game presented the opportunity for the Cincinnati trifecta?
I just figured they'd lose because the Chiefs were playing damn good, and then they went down 14-0, and then they went down 14 points 3 different times to arguably the best team in the league that had won 8 games in a row and still somehow came back and won.
14-7, 21 or 14-0, 21-7, and 28-14. Yeah.
And then held that offense to 3 points in the last 32 minutes of the game.
And Jamar Chase just said, fuck it.
Yeah. I mean,
fun to watch.
Burrow's like,
what did you think of the article today that he is the most aggressive and accurate passer
and most aggressive?
That's the most absurd thing. Like, that you can't be those two things.
No,
those are not two things. One of these that like they don't go together.
Well, his completion he's number 1 in the league in completion percentage and number 30th in expected completion percentage.
Yeah, you would expect a correction to the mean going forward at some point in time. Because that's insane.
Do you though?
No, well, better than 1st and 30th, Dave. Yes, I do expect a correction better than he is 1st in his actual numbers and 30th in his expected numbers.
Yeah,
maybe 1st and 18th.
Yeah, because he's the most aggressive passer in the league. That his expected completion percentage should be a lot lower.
Right.
But I mean this was why I wanted them to draft Jamar Chase.
Yep.
Like in the biggest games against the best teams, you have to be able to score.
Yep.
And you
don't say.
You can protect, and granted, they got to get a lot better at protection. Like just because they're playing very well and scoring points, and he's having a great year, and Jamar Chase is having a great year, like he's still getting hit way too much.
Yeah.
But if you just moved Penei Sewell in to say right tackle, or it wouldn't have even been right tackle, it would have been guard because Riley Reif probably would have started. But say he's playing right tackle now because Reif is hurt, and you take away Jamar Chase.
They're not beating the Chiefs, man.
You're not beating the Chiefs.
No.
You're not.
I agree with that.
Like, you're not scoring 41 on the Ravens, and that game is maybe a lot closer.
Right.
Like, it's just you kind of have to, like, get out of your mind the way that I'm not saying, like, abandon all other things, but like if you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to score roughly 30 points a game.
Yep. All right, people are probably getting mad at us for talking so much Bengals, but
oh well, it's been like 5 minutes.
Yeah, they'll get over it.
What do they think we're going to talk about when they keep winning?
Well, we're going to be adding some content to the banks, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We're going to be adding some content to the banks. Stay tuned.
Well, the thing, too, is, like, they're fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, winning and losing, yeah, but, like, they're just fun. Like, they're fun to watch. Play football. So
they're not a chore to watch anymore.
No.
There have been many years over the past decade that even if they were winning during the Andy Dalton years, they were a chore kind of to watch. This seems fun. So we are going to talk about them more here between Pardon the Punctuation, not necessarily on this podcast, but maybe there's another Banks podcast that pops up. Maybe there's some content that pops up on the first page, on the front page that is a little more Cincinnati sports centric, Reds, Bengals, whatever else is going on in town. People think I'm kidding when I say I'm not stopping blowing this thing up, and we're going to add as much content as we can possibly add. If it's not for you, don't click it. I don't want to hear you on the boards complaining about why is this here. There's content that you like. There's content other people like. Our job is to produce content, and I'm going to do it.
We'll have plenty for everybody. Jason asked O-line in the first and Kobe in the second. I will say I did my first PFF mock simulator the other day and got Sauce at pick 26.
Right?
So
if it happens, completely absurd. It should not happen. But I won't rule it out because for some reason there's people that think he's not a top 10 draft pick, and I don't understand it.
No. And
what are the attributes that he doesn't have, Dave? No. What are the attributes? What does he not do well? He plays run support. He blitzes. He hits. He covers. He's long. He's athletic. He's smart. He's got a great football IQ. What are the attributes that this guy doesn't have that people aren't like? I don't get it.
No, I mean, January 5th, I will say I'll be even at this point, I'll be pretty surprised if their pick is not a corner or an offensive lineman.
Yeah. Awuzie's been phenomenal.
Well, they're going to cut Trey Waynes.
Yeah, he sucks. Fuck him.
Well, we don't even know if he sucks. He can't even play.
Right. When he has played, he hasn't been good either.
They saved like $11 million if they just release his ass.
Right.
So, yeah. But anyway.
I digress.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up. What a fun show. A lot of information. A lot of good stuff. And we'll be back next week. Maybe we'll see what happens here in the next couple weeks with some advertising on this program. Stay tuned. Because when the advertising hits, you're all going to be very, very excited about said advertising. I can't tell you what, but I can tell you it's going to make a lot of you very, very happy. That's what I can tell you. Until next time, he's Dave Simone. I'm Chad Brendel. Thank you to Aaron Smith on the ones and twos. We'll see you next time. It's the BCJ Podcast right here on BearcatJournal.com.